Matthew 17:21 has been deleted from the Bible, as well as a word in Mark chapter 9. The reason is fascinating and really important if you're trying to figure out what you believe. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. You never will hear me say this, but you need to open up the King James Version of the Bible. It's the least accurate Bible translation that is widely available on the market today. Go to Matthew chapter 17 and you find verse 21 there. It'll say something to the effect of, this kind only comes out with fasting and prayer. And if you go to basically any more modern and any reliable translation of the Bible, you will find it's Matthew chapter 17, verse 20, and then verse 22. It skips verse 21. And that's because of something really interesting. So the King James Bible is basically a slight revision to something called the Bishop's Bible. And those were based on a much less accurate collection of the ancient texts. We've discovered many more that are older. And this is where it gets interesting. So if you go to one of those collections, like the Codex Vaticanus, you'll see something fascinating there. So if you pull out one of these ancient collections, the Codex Vaticanus, and you go to Mark chapter 17, verse 21, the verses aren't in there. You'd have to find the location, but when you did, you'd see that it wasn't in there at all. But there's another codex that is really interesting. It's called the Codex Sinaiticus. I think I'm saying that right. Not a biblical scholar. You can find one and they'll tell you all about this. But if you look at that codex, you'll see something really interesting. In where Mark chapter 17, verse 21 should be, it's not there again, but there's what amounts to a little asterisk. And up at the top, where the asterisk note thing is, you'll see written in a different hand than has copied this text, that passage, that verse, sort of suggesting that that verse should be part of this portion of the book of Matthew. And then if you go over to Mark in this same codex, you'll see something really interesting. Mark chapter 9 tells this same story, and if you go at the end of Mark chapter, at the end of that story, where it could say, right, fasting and prayer, it actually only says prayer, but then right there, actually in the text, in that very, very different handwriting, there is the word, the Greek word for and fasting. And then the verse starts appearing, and the word in Mark starts appearing in the collections and the translations of these books. What's clear is that the writer was actually trying to harmonize these two stories, and thought that those little pieces should be added. But the fact that the Bible, as we have received it, and as it may be written in your text, has changed over the years by people adding things to it, kind of changes what we do when we're forming our beliefs. Well, first, we should always be repeating this mantra that we don't take the Bible literally, we take the Bible seriously. But the other thing that this shows us is that the Bible is not something that has been untouched by human hands. Throughout the centuries and millennia, it is like other ancient texts in that it is changed and shaped and formed by the translation process, by the copying process, by the values of the people who originally wrote it and the people who were continuing to make tweaks to the text. It gives even more weight to this idea that the Bible is a product of multiple cultures, not just the cultures into which it was originally written, but even the cultures that were shaping it after it was written. And that's an important thing when we're forming religious beliefs using a sacred text. The thing that we don't need to use in that sacred text are the things that are culturally bound, right? Cultural values that end up being expressed in the text, which are ultimately the people saying, okay, this is how you should live in the ancient world thousands of years ago. Like, we don't live that way. Our cultures aren't the same way, and we know a whole lot more about life and the universe and psychology and all of that stuff. It doesn't make it any less holy or contain any less truth, because the kind of truth that's contained in the Bible was never the instructions that were culturally bound. It's almost never the case that the deepest and most important truth is found on the surface of the Bible. And so what we have to do is we have to read deeply, think, use our own skills of being inspired by that text in a way that, I don't know, people like Martin Luther King were inspired. To let the text guide us into being people who are agents of peace and justice and mercy and grace in the world. Yeah, just thought you should know that.